hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Dynasty Wonderland podcast with me, the Mad Chatter, Ryan MK, and again by my side, the man, the salary cap Dan, Aaron Stewart. What's up, buddy?
Oh, not much, man. It's a wonderful Monday night. We just got
Yeah.
done with the Monday night football game.
Mm-hmm.
A little interesting to say the least, but I'm ready to cover it, man. How are you doing?
I'm trying to wake up because it made me fall asleep. Not really, but it was. I'll just get right into it. I feel like our streak of awesome primetime games has ended. I mean, sure, there are the people, and I enjoy a good defensive game, and Demario Davis was fun tonight. He was all over the fucking place. But other than that, and I mean, especially fantasy wise, like Kamara went off for the Saints, and other than that, if not for one big huge play from DK Metcalf, we would have got jack shit from the Seahawks. So it was just kind of ugly. The Saints offense is just like, it's Kamara. Like, there's not much else. And somehow they're 4-2. It's just that, like, oh, and don't get me wrong. If you had Kamara, you're happy. 179 all-purpose yards and a touchdown. So, you're not disappointed, but nothing else. Troutman, Callaway each got a few catches, but it just, Traquan Smith returned 3 targets, 1 catch for 11 yards. Just not a very good offense. The same with the Seahawks. It was, like I've said before, it was a little iffy when Russ was in there. And I was just hoping, and I talked about this on a previous podcast, I was just hoping Geno would be just good enough that it wouldn't completely kill Lockett and Metcalf. And again, if you had Metcalf, you were fine because he had the huge catch for the touchdown. But other than that, I mean, let's see, where was Tyler Lockett at? 2 catches?
12
2 catches for 12 yards? And their run game is atrocious. Rashad Penny returned tonight for the tune of 6 carries for 9 yards. So I imagine that there's a decent chance something happens with Russ and the Seahawks. Maybe we see Russ in a different uniform next year. Maybe he gets his wish.
It's very possible. And one of my takeaways on this one is like Geno Smith is just typical backup quarterback. Like, and you can usually tell the quality of your backup when they do get a chance to have to fill in for a starter for a few games. And you see this game and you go, technically, no turnovers, right? I don't think there was any fumbles or anything from them. It was a clean game from that aspect, but yeah, like 167 yards, that ain't gonna cut it. Not in the NFL today. I mean, you have to have a ridiculously strong running game, which
they don't.
Without Chris Carson, yeah. I mean, it's Alex Collins, 16 carries for 35 yards. Clearly, they don't have the run game to be able to have a quarterback have that type of performance. From one of my fantasy leagues, it felt dirty to do at the time, but I'm so glad I did it. Was like I benched Tyler Lockett in my flex, and it's a team in a league where usually I'm starting a receiver in my flex because my receiver depth is so much better. But I went with Elijah Mitchell, and just I'm so glad because I did, like, you almost on a Sunday go, Lockett, talent better than the situation. I'll put Lockett in. I'm so glad that I left him on my bench for Elijah Mitchell. Sometimes you just have to trust the process there. And yeah, after seeing the box score, and it was only 3 targets too, it was like, okay, really glad I didn't do any last minute tinkering there.
Well, in the game that Geno came in for Russ, when Russ initially that was the game I thought, okay, Geno might be able to catch, but it feels like he's gotten worse since then because he played all right in relief for Russ. But the couple games starting, so it's rough. It's rough. Rough to be a Seattle fan. And the Saints, I mean, again, they're 4-2, but fantasy-wise, you can't count on anything but Kamara. And I think they play the Bucs next week. Oh, man.
It's going to be brutal. And we talked about this on the pod last night that dropped this morning on just how important this game was really for both teams. For the Saints, like, yeah, you mentioned like they're 4-2 and they're having to do everything they can, including, honestly, I go for them. It's a good win. Seattle's a tough place to play. It always has been. And so, with Sean Payton and the Saints, they just go, hey, we got to win on the road in a tough environment. We'll take it. For Seattle now, it's wow. I just glanced over the box score to see that Seattle is actually 0-3 at home. They haven't won a single home game. Now you're 2-5. You are last place in this division. And he talked about the Russell Wilson, like possible trade rumors. And you're starting to hear it more because, of course, anytime that you stop winning games, that's when all the rumors start to happen. When Seattle's competing and everything, you don't hear that until probably the offseason. But I think that's going to be a narrative that we're going to hear this entire season, especially with when you look and you go, Seahawks are last place in the division, really don't have a shot at winning this division, not with the way the Rams are playing at 6-1, the Cardinals 7-0. Being just 4 games behind the Rams just feels like an insurmountable task right there. Like, I don't know. I highly doubt they can get back in this division. And when you sit there, last place in the division, then you start going, okay, maybe we do have to consider trading Russell Wilson because it's not really on him. He's still great, but the rest of the roster is just garbage.
And I almost feel like because there was some of this noise with Russ wanting out of there in the offseason.
Yeah.
And then unlike Aaron Rodgers, who kind of, obviously that got a little bit uglier. He kind of, showed up and was like, that was made a bigger deal than it really was. It's like, nah, bro, come on. You said what you said. And it's almost like there's like an unwritten same kind of deal there where maybe it was just the Seahawks like, hey, let's see how this year goes. And then, we can talk about moving on from Russ. It almost feels that way to me. And it's not going great. So I definitely think that, not just for, obviously it's something Russ is thinking about, but I think now it has to be something that Seattle, if they weren't at least considering it before, they have to strongly consider it now because you got to do something. This team is just yuck.
It's a mess.
All right. One highlight of the night, though, I will say was, you get little bits of the Peyton and Eli broadcast. They had Tom Brady on, and there was a bit where Brady's talking about playing against the two of them. And at one point he says, I'm much more preferred playing against Peyton. I liked those games better, basically. And they go a little bit longer, and Eli's like, hey, Tom, I enjoyed all of our games. And it's like, of course you did. It was just so good, the little banter right there. And so that was probably the highlight of the night, honestly. But so kind of a bummer for a game. It stinks because I've always enjoyed watching the Seahawks, and it's kind of sad to see them what they've become this year. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with them in the future, but that's what we got for the game. And what do you think about Thursday night football? This one, we should get back going to good primetime games because we've got Green Bay, the 6-1 Green Bay Packers at the undefeated Arizona Cardinals. What do you think about this one, my man?
And what an NFC matchup right there. There is one negative there because the news came out today. Devontae Adams is on the COVID list.
Yes.
And we don't know the status of these players in terms of whether they're vaccinated or not. And that matters. It does, because even if Devontae Adams doesn't have COVID, if he didn't get vaccinated, there's no shot, as far as I'm aware, that he'll be able to play in this game.
Not a chance.
Right, because it's such a lengthy process that unvaccinated players have to go through. Right. And for NFL teams, you do what you got to do. And so that does kind of put a damper on it. Now you are sitting there and you're going, man, I really hope he's vaccinated so that if it just happens to be one of those, I don't know if it's like a fake positive or something like that. You hope he can get out on the field because without Devontae Adams, yes, there were some Packer players that we talked about in the last pod that looked good, but that was more of a product of Washington's just horrendous pass defense. And Arizona isn't anything to write home about. Like they certainly have some problems too, but nobody.
I think Aaron Jones has a monster game if Adams is out.
Ooh, I like that. I like that. And it, you do start to go a little chalk. It's like if Adams is out, probably play more Aaron Jones because you would have to think that he's clearly the second best receiving option, even though he plays running back there.
Right.
And you'd have to think they get him more involved. But yeah, on the surface, having 6-1 Green Bay, 7-0 Arizona, and for Arizona too, it's like we talked about the Rams. Like the Rams aren't going away. Like thank goodness Arizona won that game on the road. But it's like just losing one game and you lose the division lead. That is crazy, and that drops you from a number 1 seed to with a bye week in the playoffs to number 5. Right. And I want to say there are 5 teams with 1 loss or less in the NFL, and they're all in the NFC, including the 2 teams that are playing Thursday Night Football. So it's a potential playoff preview,
right?
And it does. Maybe it's not really a revenge game there, but I do think of the Packers Cardinals playoff game from years and years ago, the Jeff Janis game. So it's
Jeff Janis.
And these 2 teams, we know they're going to be in the playoffs. I mean, Green Bay's already got a 3-game lead on a division that just features the Vikings team that's not going anywhere, the Bears, and the Lions that are, they're chippy, but we all knew they weren't going to make playoffs. So interesting. Definitely a playoff preview. What's kind of your takeaway when you look at this matchup?
I see it high scoring. I did. So I just think like fantasy points galore, and I think it's going to be a fun game. I did actually forget. I remember reading the Devontae Adams news, totally forgot about it. So that does put a little damper on it. But again, like I said, I think my immediate reaction to that is Aaron Jones' game. Because regardless of position, he's right there with Devontae Adams as far as talent and importance at the skill positions. So I definitely see that. I'm sure Tanya and Lazard get a little more involved, whatever, but Aaron Rodgers can make do more often than not. But yeah, that's definitely a little damper. We'll see what happens with him. And I'm just excited because I think that's going to be a hell of a Thursday night game. So at least I hope so. But yeah, and you mentioned Devontae Adams, the COVID situation. So few big names that went out of games this weekend. Miles Sanders, ankle injury. Sounds like he's going to be week to week. Josh Jacobs, he's going to be good to go, it sounds like, for week 8 with the chest contusion. So it sounds like he's going to be all right. Zach Wilson, on the other hand, PCL injury, 2 to 4 weeks, it sounds like, for him. And I don't know if anybody saw, but I did see that the Jets did trade for Joe Flacco. So we'll see what Joe Flacco and Mike White. So there you go.
Like let that sink in there. That Philadelphia, in which they of course traded for Gardner Minshew in the offseason. They trade Joe Flacco and are able to get anything really. I want to say it's maybe a conditional 5th round pick. Yeah, I think it's a 6th rounder. If he plays X amount of games, it becomes a 5th rounder. For the simplicity, we'll say it's a 6th round pick, but still, it's like you got a 6th round pick for a quarterback that was never going to play for your team. Like, I like what Philly's doing. They are collecting a lot of draft picks, especially just about a week ago. A week ago, they traded Zach Ertz, and Ertz had no future whatsoever in Philadelphia. They get a 5th round pick, and
but he's been nice for Arizona.
He has been. But for Philadelphia, and Philadelphia. It was a smart trade just because they weren't going anywhere. Like, why not get a draft pick? Because they're at that point where it's asset collection and trying to rebuild this roster from the ground up. And it's something like 5 fifth 5/6 rounders, and those add up. Like there may only be one that hits, but like the reason you acquire all those draft picks is you want as many throws at the dartboard as possible. So just the fact that
yes, indeed,
you got something for Joe Flacco, like what the heck? And that may mean when you talked about Zach Wilson, it may be that he's more of a 4-week time period than 2 weeks. I don't feel like you trade a kind of valuable draft pick because I don't get it from the Jets standpoint.
I don't get it at all.
Yeah. Why are you giving a draft pick? Like, if you were playoff contending and you're like, oh man, starting quarterback's out.
Right.
And we need someone to like, to steady the team, kind of keep things rolling. You could justify that. You're the Jets.
They're going nowhere.
You just gave up 54 points. You got curb stomped by the Patriots for a second time this season. Why are you giving up a draft pick for, how old's Flacco at this point? 35, 36 years old? Right. I may be wrong on that. But Flacco at this point of his career, he's the guy that signs those 1-year contracts, gets $2 to $3 million, holds a clipboard, probably looks okay holding a clipboard. I don't know. Maybe he will shock us because we're clearly going to see him in games.
To me, it's a lose-lose because if Joe Flacco's terrible, would you give up the pick for? Mm-hmm. However, if he's any good, I mean, you still had to give up a pick to get him, and it's not like you were going anywhere, like you said. So now you're just you're trying to better your team. Like you might as well, keep losing so you get higher pay. You know what I mean? Like, right. So you get a higher shot at an offensive lineman or a skill position, something to help your young quarterback. Like, I don't know why to me, it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. At all.
It's mind-boggling.
Except other than it's the Jets. Then you go, the Jets did it. Oh, okay. The Jets did. Now it makes sense.
Yeah. It's about the only justification. The Jets did it.
Right. All right, buddy. I don't know, man. That's all I got. We got a lame-ass Monday Night Football game. I mean, it's all right. It was football, so I'm not going to complain too much. And then we got look ahead to what figures to be a very fun Thursday night game. Little injury news in there. And, we move on.
Love it.
All right, buddy. Any final thoughts at all from you, my friend?
Just the one thing I want to mention to the listeners of the show. If you're listening to us on YouTube, of course, like and subscribe to the video. If you're listening to us on podcasts, like, hey, anything, a thumbs up there, a review, or just share the podcast. Like, if you really enjoy what we're doing here, you got to let your friends know. Like, we got some good stuff. Please. So
that's right.
And make sure, of course, you follow our Twitter accounts. Follow the Twitter account of the Dynasty Wonderland podcast as well. That's at DW_pod. Just help support us. We like to, we don't do it for the recognition, but when you start seeing some likes there, it certainly helps kind of motivate us to keep going. So please support the show.
Well, you'd like to know that what we're doing is potentially helping some motherfuckers out. You know what I mean? Like that's the goal of all this. So you like to know if the listeners are going up, that means you must be doing something right. You must be helping some people out. So that's the point. But yes, everything Aaron said, I seconded, and we are off into the night. And back on Thursday, to recap what should be a fun game and look ahead to week 8, Sunday weekend. Until next time, my friends, stay safe, stay vigilant, stay mad, all that good stuff. And we'll talk to you later. From the chatter, the captain, we're out of here. Ta-ta for now. Later.